It's quite an adventure falling in love with a toxic man, especially your supposed protector and bodyguard, even as a married woman. That's what we're getting into today. But before we step into the underworld, do me a huge favor, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. It helps our family grow and ensure you never miss a new release. I want this comment section to be buzzing today. Tell me in the comments, where in the world are you tuning in from? And while you're listening, timestamp your favorite parts. If a scene makes you laugh or swoon, let me know right when it happens. Are you ready? Let's get into the story. The gun was cold against my head, but that wasn't what made me shake. It was the way Daehyun's hand trembled as he held it, this man who never trembled, who moved through the world with the certainty of gravity itself. "Tell me you don't love him," he whispered in Korean, the language I'd learned for survival, but now understood well enough to die by. "Tell me this was always pretend." Behind us, Jae-won lay in a spreading pool of his own blood, still breathing barely. The restaurant's back room smelled like gunpowder and the expensive whiskey now soaking into Persian rugs. Somewhere in the building, sirens wailed. We had maybe 3 minutes before Seoul's finest arrived to find Korea's most dangerous mafia boss shot, his wife unharmed, and his bodyguard holding the smoking gun. "Daehyun," I managed, my voice surprisingly steady for a woman staring down the barrel of her own stupid choices. "Put the gun down." His laugh was broken glass. "You still think you give the orders? You still think any of this was ever your choice?" That's when I understood. He wasn't pointing the gun at me as a threat. He was asking me to choose where this story ended. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it really started, not with the wedding, not with the contract, but with the moment I stopped seeing Daehyun as my protector and started seeing him as the most dangerous man in my life. Spoiler alert, it wasn't the moment he first touched me. It was the moment I first wanted him to. Chapter 1. The Art of Suffocation. 6 months earlier. The thing about Seoul in November is that it punishes you for being unprepared. The cold comes fast and mean, stripping the ginkgo trees bare and turning the Han River into something gray and unforgiving. I wasn't prepared for a lot of things that winter: the weather, the loneliness, the way my husband's world operated like a beautiful, brutal machine. I was expected to become a Kogan. But mostly, I wasn't prepared for how good Daehyun looked when he was angry. "You cannot keep doing this," he said, his Korean clipped and precise as he maneuvered the black Mercedes through Gangnam traffic. We'd just left my art studio in Itaewon, where I'd spent the afternoon teaching underprivileged kids how to sculpt. Unauthorized. Unscheduled. Unacceptable. Doing what? My job. I shot back in English, because my Korean still faltered when I was pissed. "I'm an artist, Daehyun. I teach. That's what I do. You are Mrs. Kim Jae-won. That is what you do now." I laughed, the sound caustic even to my own ears. "Right. Smile pretty, wear expensive clothes, and pretend I don't know my husband's import-export business is about as legitimate as a $3 bill." His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "Your sarcasm does not make you safer. It makes my job harder. Maybe I don't want to be safe. Maybe I want to be alive." The car swerved, not dangerously, but enough to jolt me. Daehyun pulled into an underground parking garage, killing the engine in one smooth motion. The sudden silence was deafening. "Do you think this is a game?" He turned to face me, and God help me, I noticed things I shouldn't. The way his jaw clenched. How his eyes had gone nearly black. The vein pulsing at his temple. "Do you think your husband's enemies will appreciate your humanitarian efforts when they put a bullet in your head to send him a message? At least I'd die doing something that mattered. You would die doing something stupid." We were both breathing hard, the space between us charged with something I didn't want to name. 6 months of this dance, him controlling, me resisting, neither of us acknowledging the third thing happening beneath the power struggle. "I'm going back next week," I said quietly. "To teach. You can tell Jae-won or not. Your choice." "Amara. Don't." I held up a hand. "Don't Amara me like we're friends. You're my warden. Let's not pretend otherwise." Something flickered across his face, hurt, maybe, or anger, or something more complicated. Then the mask slammed back into place, and he was professional bodyguard again, all business and bulletproof composure. As you wish, Mrs. Kim. The formality stung more than it should have. That night, Jae-won actually came home. A rare occurrence. He usually divided his time between Tokyo, where his legitimate businesses operated, and whatever dark corner of Seoul his illegitimate ones required. Our penthouse apartment was less a home and more a way station where two strangers occasionally crossed paths. Your bodyguard tells me you've been difficult, he said in English, pouring himself scotch in our marble and steel kitchen. At 42, Kim Jae-won was handsome in the way money makes men handsome, well-maintained, expensively dressed, surgically precise in his grooming. We'd consummated the marriage exactly once, on our wedding night, with the enthusiasm of two people completing a particularly unpleasant business transaction. We hadn't touched since. Your bodyguard has opinions about how I spend my time, I replied, pouring wine I didn't want. Opinions he seems to think supersede my own. Jae-won studied me with the same detached interest he might give a quarterly earnings report. Dae-hyun has kept you alive for 6 months in a city where 3 people have tried to kidnap you, 2 have attempted to photograph you in compromising positions, and 1 nearly poisoned your coffee at that little shop you like in Samcheong-dong. Perhaps his opinions have merit. I set down my glass carefully. 3 people tried to what? Kidnap you. The Hwang family twice. The Japanese Yakuza once, trying to send me a message about territories. He said it like he was discussing the weather. Dae-hyun handled it. Quietly. As I pay him to do. The wine turned to acid in my stomach. And you didn't think to tell me? Why? So you could be frightened? Paranoid. Jae-won's smile was winter itself. I married you because you're intelligent, Amara. Your family's connections in West Africa are valuable. Your poise makes you an excellent front for my social operations. But you are, fundamentally, a liability I must protect. Dae-hyun does this. Let him. I'm not a child. No. You're an asset. A beautiful, useful asset. Act like one. He left for Tokyo the next morning. I didn't see him again for 3 weeks. But I saw Dae-hyun every single day. The shift happened so gradually I almost missed it. Or maybe I didn't miss it. Maybe I just didn't want to admit what was happening to him, to me, to the toxic ecosystem we'd created in the space between protection and possession. It started with breakfast. Dae-hyun began arriving earlier, bringing coffee from the place in Samcheong-dong, apparently safe now that he'd handled the poisoning threat. Then it was breakfast, those little rice porridges Korean mothers make, juk, which he claimed his own mother had taught him to prepare. Lies, probably, but they tasted like comfort I hadn't known I was craving. You need to eat better, he said, watching me with those storm cloud eyes. You are losing weight. It is not healthy. Controlling my diet now too? Caring about your well-being. There is a difference. But was there? I couldn't tell anymore. Then came the Korean lessons. My tutor had cancelled. Dae-hyun never said why, but I suspected his involvement, and suddenly he was teaching me himself. 2 hours every morning, sitting too close at the dining table, his voice patient as he corrected my pronunciation. I attempted. No. Listen. 안녕하세요. He leaned closer, and I could smell his cologne, something clean and expensive and distracting. Your tongue is too far back. Here. His fingers brushed my jaw, tilting my face toward him. Try again. I tried. Failed. Tried again. His hand stayed on my face longer than necessary. Better, he murmured, and something in his voice had gone rough around the edges. This was dangerous. We both knew it. Neither of us stopped. The first time I caught him watching me, really watching, not the professional surveillance of a bodyguard, but the hungry observation of a man, I was in my studio. The penthouse had an entire room dedicated to my art, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline. I was working on a sculpture, clay-covered and focused, when I felt the weight of his stare. I turned. He was leaning against the doorframe, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms that had no business being that distracting. His expression was unguarded for once, raw and wanting, and quickly shuddered when he realized I'd noticed. I'm sorry, he said in Korean, straightening. I did not mean to disturb you. You're always disturbing me, Dae-hyun. I meant it as a joke. It came out like an accusation. or an invitation. He crossed the room slowly, deliberately, giving me time to tell him to stop. I didn't. He stopped inches away, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. What are you making? His voice had dropped to something almost intimate. I don't know yet. Something about cages, I think. Or birds. Or both. Amara. The way he said my name, like a prayer, like a curse, like something he had no right to but couldn't help claiming. This cannot happen. What can't happen? This. You know what this is. I did. God help me, I did. We were standing on a knife's edge, and one of us was going to bleed. Then leave, I whispered. Walk away. Tell J1 you can't do this job anymore. I cannot. Why? His hand came up, hovering near my face, but not quite touching, like I was something precious and forbidden. Because if I am not the one protecting you, someone else will be. And I cannot. I will not trust your safety to anyone else. That's not protection, Daehyun. That's possession. Yes. No shame in the admission. No apology. Yes, it is. I should have run. Should have demanded a new bodyguard. Should have called J1 and explained that his employee had crossed a line so catastrophically that there was no walking it back. Instead, I leaned into his almost touch and said, good. We didn't kiss. Not then. That would come later, and it would ruin everything. But in that moment, we made an unspoken agreement more binding than any marriage contract. He would possess me, and I would let him, and we would both pretend it was protection until the lie consumed us whole. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in tension. Daehyun became simultaneously more present and more distant, hovering closer physically while maintaining an emotional fortress I couldn't breach. He started sleeping outside my bedroom door. Not in the guest room down the hall where J1 had assigned him, but literally outside my door, like some kind of faithful guard dog. This is insane, I said, stepping over him one morning. You have a perfectly good bed. That bed is too far away. He didn't look up from his phone. If someone broke in, precious seconds would be lost. We're on the 32nd floor of a building with more security than Fort Knox. Not enough security. Never enough. I stared down at him, this man who'd somehow inverted our entire power dynamic, who'd made me the princess in a tower I'd willingly climbed into. You're not protecting me from them, are you? You're protecting me from the world. From everything. Including myself. He finally looked up, and the naked honesty in his face stole my breath. Yes. Is that so terrible? Yes. No. Maybe. I didn't know anymore. The first real climax came on a Thursday. I'd been planning it for weeks, a secret rebellion, a test to see how far his control really extended. I told Daehyun I was going to a charity luncheon in Gangnam. Instead, I met my friend Chioma, a fellow Nigerian expat, at a club in Hongdae. Girl, you look like you're planning a prison break, Chioma laughed, passing me a cocktail that was definitely not on Daehyun's approved beverage list. What's with the spy movie routine? I'm not on prison break. I'm just living like a normal person. For one night. With your scary hot bodyguard lurking somewhere nearby? I gave him the slip. Pride colored my voice. I'd used a decoy car, switched clothes in a department store bathroom, left my phone, which I suspected he'd bugged, in a locker at the gym. For the first time in months, I was free. It lasted exactly 2 hours. I was dancing, really dancing, sweat-slicked and laughing, remembering what my body felt like when it moved without someone's gaze weighing it down, when the music died. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Daehyun stood in the club's entrance, backlit by neon, and he looked like the wrath of God in a Tom Ford suit. Oh shit, Chioma breathed. Girl, it was nice knowing you. He crossed the floor in ground-eating strides, ignoring the bouncer trying to intercept him. His hand closed around my wrist, not painful, but absolutely immovable. We are leaving. Get your hand off me. Now, Amara. I said. He lifted me. Actually lifted me off my feet and threw me over his shoulder like I weighed nothing, like I was a misbehaving child rather than a grown woman. The club erupted in whistles and laughter. My humiliation was complete. The car ride back was silent. Daehyun drove with one hand, the other gripping the steering wheel so hard I heard the leather creak. His jaw was clenched so tight I thought his teeth might shatter. You can't just, I started. Do you have any idea what could have happened? His voice was barely controlled violence. Any idea at all? That club is owned by the Huang family. You walked directly into enemy territory, alone, unprotected. I'm not a prisoner. You're mine. The words detonated in the car's confined space. He pulled over so violently the tires squealed, and then we were stopped on some random Seoul side street, both breathing like we'd run marathons, staring at each other with something that looked like hate but felt like drowning. Say that again, I whispered. He closed his eyes. I should not have. Say it again. When he looked at me again, the mask was gone. Completely. Utterly. You're mine, Amara. I know you're married to another man. I know I am an employee, a subordinate, nothing. But every time I see you, every time you smile, every time you breathe, something in me screams mine so loudly I cannot hear anything else. So no, you are not a prisoner. You are something far more dangerous. You are the only thing in this world I would kill for. Die for. And I cannot let you go into the dark alone. I should have been terrified. Should have recognized the red flags waving so violently they could have caused a hurricane. Instead, I kissed him. Chapter 2. The Point of No Return. Kissing Daehyun was like kissing a storm, all electricity and danger and the promise of destruction. He made a sound low in his throat, half surrender, half claim, and suddenly his hands were in my hair and I was in his lap and the gear shift was digging into my hip and none of it mattered because finally, something was happening on my terms. Except it wasn't, was it? He pulled back first, breathing ragged, forehead pressed to mine. We cannot do this. We just did. Amara. My name was a plea. You are married. To my employer. To a man who would kill me, kill us, if he knew. My husband hasn't touched me in 6 months. Our marriage is a business arrangement. He doesn't care. He cares about his possessions. And you're his most valuable one. The words were ice water. I pulled back, climbing off his lap with as much dignity as I could muster in a too-short dress and smeared lipstick. Is that what you think I am? A possession? To him? Yes. To me? His hand caught my face, tilting it toward him with that maddening gentleness. To me, you're everything. Which is why this cannot happen. I will not make you an adulteress. Will not endanger you for my own selfish. I kissed him again, harder this time, teeth and tongue and 6 months of frustration poured into one desperate gesture. This time, he didn't pull away. This time, his control snapped like a wire pulled too tight, and his hands were everywhere, my waist, my hips, sliding up my thigh with a possessiveness that should have scared me but instead set me on fire. We didn't sleep together. Not that night. But we crossed a line we both knew we couldn't uncross, there in his car on a random Seoul street, making out like teenagers while my husband's enemies probably watched through a dozen security cameras. When we finally surfaced, both flushed and wrecked, Daehyun rested his forehead against the steering wheel. This is a mistake, he said in Korean. Probably, I agreed in English. We should stop. Should we? He looked at me then, and I saw something that terrified me more than any mafia threat. Hope. Desperate, doomed hope that maybe, just maybe, this could be something other than catastrophic. No, he admitted. I do not think I can. The affair, because that's what it was, no matter how we tried to pretty it up, began in earnest after that. Stolen moments that felt like thievery because they were. A touch that lingered too long. Fingers intertwined in the car. Him teaching me Korean with his mouth on my neck, vocabulary lessons that had nothing to do with language and everything to do with learning how to unravel each other. We still hadn't slept together. That line remained uncrossed, a final boundary that let us pretend we weren't completely destroying our lives. As if kissing someone, wanting someone, belonging to someone wasn't already the ultimate betrayal. Tell me about your family, I said one evening. We were in my studio, me pretending to work on a sculpture while he pretended to read security reports. The charade had become comfortable. Dangerous. My family? He looked up surprised. We never talked about personal things. Our relationship existed in a vacuum, context-free, as if we could separate ourselves from the messy reality of who we were. You know everything about me. I know nothing about you. He considered this, then set aside his tablet. My father was military. Very strict. Very traditional. He wanted me to follow his path, join the army, serve Korea with honor. But you became a bodyguard for a gangster instead? A ghost of a smile. I did join the army. Special forces. I was very good at it, at violence, at following orders, at not questioning the cost. His expression darkened. Too good. I did things that wake me at night. Things I cannot take back. I moved to sit beside him, our shoulders touching. What happened? I was discharged. Honorably, on paper. In reality, I had become too effective, too ruthless. Even my superiors were frightened. He stared at his hands, beautiful hands, killer's hands. Jaewon found me when I had nothing. He offered me purpose, money, a place in his organization. He trusted me with his most precious asset. Me. You. The word carried weight. He trusted me to protect you, and I have betrayed that trust in ways that would earn me a bullet if he knew. But I cannot stop. I have tried. God knows I've tried to stay away from you, to maintain proper distance, to be only what I should be. But Amara, he switched to Korean, the words flowing faster. You are the first good thing I have wanted in years. The first pure thing in a life soaked in blood. And I know I am poisoning you by touching you, but I am too selfish to let go. I kissed his jaw, his cheek, the corner of his mouth. What if I don't want you to let go? Then we are both damned. I can live with that. His laugh was broken. I cannot. I will not let you destroy yourself for me. Too late. I'm already destroyed. Have been since I married Jaewon. At least with you, I get to choose my own ruin. We made love that night, slow and desperate and world-ending. Afterward, lying in my bed with dawn breaking over Seoul's skyline, Daehyun traced patterns on my skin like he was memorizing a map. This cannot last, he whispered. You know that. I know. One of us will have to leave. Or we will both die. Cheerful pillow talk. I am serious, Amara. Jaewon is many things, but he is not a fool. Eventually, he will see. And when he does, then we leave. Together. We run. He went still. Run where? I am not a good man. I do not have savings or prospects or anything to offer you beyond this. He gestured at himself with something like disgust. Beyond a killer who is obsessed with you in ways that are not healthy. I don't need healthy. I need real. And this, whatever this is the most real thing I've felt since I signed my life away. You would give up your family's security? Your marriage? Your safety? For you? In a heartbeat. It was the wrong thing to say. I saw it immediately in the way his expression shifted, from vulnerable to determined, from lover to something darker. No, he said simply. I will not let you sacrifice everything for me. You deserve better than a life on the run with a man who has blood on his hands. You deserve safety, comfort, respect. I deserve to choose. And I choose to protect you. Even from yourself. Even from me. He left my bed then, gathered his clothes with military precision, dressed in silence. When he reached the door, he paused. I love you, he said in Korean, the words sharp as glass. That is why this must end. Tomorrow, I will speak to Jaewon. I will request a transfer. Another bodyguard will be assigned to you, someone professional, someone who can protect you properly. Daehyun, do not make this harder. Please. He left. The door closed with a soft click that sounded like an execution. I cried until sunrise, then vomited, then cried some more. Somewhere in the midst of my breakdown, clarity struck like lightning. I wasn't crying because he left. I was crying because I'd finally found someone who saw me, wanted me, possessed me, and I'd discovered I liked being possessed. Craved it. Had become so addicted to his attention, his control, his obsessive devotion that the thought of losing it felt like dying. I was in love with my cage. And the jailer was leaving. Unacceptable. Daehyun didn't speak to Jaewon that day. Or the next. Because I made sure he couldn't. I need to pause here and acknowledge something. What I did next was manipulative. Cruel, even. I weaponized every insecurity I'd identified in him, every weakness I'd cataloged during our months together. I played the damsel, the seductress, the mirror to all his protective instincts. In other words, I became exactly the kind of toxic he'd been to me. Love does that sometimes, turns you into the thing you're fighting. I started small. A call to Jaewon's office, mentioning casually that I'd noticed some strange men following me. Lies, of course, but effective. Daehyun's paranoia spiked immediately. He increased security, started sleeping outside my door again, watched me with the intensity of a man guarding something infinitely precious and infinitely fragile. I thought you were transferring, I said innocently. I will. Soon. But first, I need to ensure you are safe. What if I'm never safe? What if you can never leave? His jaw clenched. He knew what I was doing. And he couldn't stop it because his obsession ran deeper than his willpower. Then I upped the ante. Started dressing differently, not provocatively, but deliberately. The outfits he'd complimented. The perfume he'd once said reminded him of jasmine. Small, calculated choices designed to torture us both. Amara, he warned one morning, his voice strained. You're playing with fire. Maybe I like burning. I am trying to do the right thing. The right thing is staying. You know it is. We fought. God, how we fought vicious, circular arguments that always ended the same way, with us in each other's arms, crossing the lines we'd sworn not to cross, breaking the boundaries we'd promised to maintain. The sex became a weapon we wielded against each other, him trying to prove he could walk away, me proving he couldn't. It was toxic. Destructive. Exactly the kind of relationship therapists write warning articles about. It was also the most alive I'd ever felt. The second climax came 6 weeks after Daehyun's attempted exit. Jaewon came home. Not just for a night. For a week. Some kind of important business meetings in Seoul that required his presence, and mine, apparently. I was to play the devoted wife, the perfect hostess, the beautiful accessory to his criminal empire. There will be many people, Jaewon explained over breakfast, his tone clipped and professional. Allies, rivals, potential business partners. You will smile, be charming, and most importantly, demonstrate that I am a man of power and refinement. Understood. Understood, I echoed, numb. Across the room, Daehyun stood at attention, his face carefully blank. But I saw the muscle jumping in his jaw, the white-knuckle grip he had on his composure. Daehyun will accompany you, of course, Jaewon continued. I trust him completely with your safety. The irony was devastating. My husband trusted the man I was sleeping with to keep me safe. The man who'd seen every inch of my body. The man who whispered Korean endearments against my skin and made me promises we both knew he couldn't keep. Of course, sir, Daehyun said, bowing slightly. That week was hell. Pure, exquisite hell. I had to play loving wife to a man I barely knew while the man I'd fallen for watched from the shadows. Had to let Jaewon touch my waist, my shoulder, my hand, all chaste, all public, all performance, while Daehyun's eyes burned holes through me. The worst was the gala on Friday night. Some charity auction in a 5-star hotel, Seoul's elite dressed in designer clothes and designer smiles. I wore emerald green, Jaewon's choice, and diamonds that cost more than most people's houses. You look beautiful, Jaewon said, fastening the necklace around my throat. His hands were cold. Everything about him was cold. Thank you, I replied, the words automatic. Daehyun waited by the door in his black suit, expression carved from granite. Our eyes met in the mirror. The look he gave me was possession and misery in equal measure. At the gala, I played my role perfectly. Smiled at the right people, laughed at the right jokes, let Jaewon guide me through conversations like I was a chess piece he was moving around a board. And through it all, Daehyun watched. I excused myself to the restroom around midnight, needing a break from the performance. The bathroom was all marble and gold fixtures, empty except for me and my reflection. I looked like a stranger, perfectly styled, perfectly composed, perfectly fake. The door opened. Closed. Locked. Daehyun. You cannot be in here, I said, even as my body betrayed me, leaning toward him like a plant toward sunlight. I know. He crossed the space between us in 2 strides, his hands cupping my face with a desperation that stole my breath. I know, and I cannot help it. Watching him touch you, watching you smile at him, pretend with him. It's pretend. You know that. I know. But it is killing me anyway. His forehead pressed to mine, and I could feel him shaking. We need to stop this. We need to end this before it destroys us both. Then why are you here? Because I am weak. Because I am selfish. Because the thought of you in his bed tonight makes me want to put a bullet in my own head just to stop imagining it. I kissed him then, hard and desperate, and he responded in kind. His hands tangled in my carefully styled hair, ruining it, and I didn't care. The diamonds at my throat pressed cold between us, my husband's diamonds, my husband's wife, my husband's bodyguard breaking every rule and neither of us able to stop. A knock on the door made us spring apart. Amara. Jaewon's voice. Calm. Curious. Are you all right? Daehyun's eyes went wide with something like terror. I'd never seen him afraid before. Fine. I called back, my voice surprisingly steady. Just needed a moment. Too much champagne. Your bodyguard is missing as well. Have you seen him? The question hung in the perfumed air like a guillotine blade. He stepped out for a call, I think I lied. I saw him by the elevators. A pause that lasted 1,000 years. I see. I will send someone to check on you. Footsteps retreated. Daehyun and I stared at each other, both understanding the same thing. We'd nearly been caught. And if we had been, we'd both be dead. This ends now, he whispered. It has to. I know. I mean it this time, Amara. I will transfer. I will leave. I will. I'm pregnant. The lie fell from my lips before I'd fully formed the thought. But the moment I said it, I saw the trap snap shut. Saw Daehyun's face cycle through shock, joy, terror, and land on fierce, unshakable determination. Mine, the word was barely a breath. I nodded, committing to the deception. Jaewon and I haven't. Not since the wedding night. It has to be yours. His hands went to my stomach, reverent and possessive. Then we leave. Tonight. Now. I will protect you, protect our child. We will disappear, go somewhere he cannot find us. He'll kill us both. You know he will. Then let him try. Daehyun's eyes had gone wild, feral. I have killed for less. I will burn this entire city to keep you safe. And there it was, the final transformation. From protector to obsessive. From obsessive to something darker, more dangerous. He wasn't looking at me like a lover anymore. He was looking at me like a crusader looks at a holy war. I'd created a monster. Or maybe just finally revealed the one that had been there all along, lurking beneath the surface of his devotion. We need to be smart about this, I said, trying to reel back the chaos I'd unleashed. We need a plan. If we run now, without preparation, he'll find us in a week. Then we prepare. Quickly. I have contacts, resources. We can be gone in 3 days. Daehyun. 3 days, Amara. Then you and our child will be safe. I swear it on my life. He left the bathroom first, slipping out with the stealth he'd learned in special forces. I followed 5 minutes later, makeup repaired, hair smoothed, the perfect image of Jaewon's perfect wife. But inside, I was screaming. Because I just told the most dangerous lie of my life to the most dangerous man in my life, and I had no idea how to take it back. There was no pregnancy. But I'd seen Daehyun's face when he thought there was, seen the absolute conviction that he would protect this imaginary child at any cost. I'd weaponized his love, his obsession. And now I had to live with the consequences. Chapter 3. The Beautiful Breakdown. The next 3 days were a fever dream orchestrated in whispers and stolen moments. Daehyun became a man possessed, which, technically, I suppose he was. Possessed by the idea of me, of us, of a future that existed only in his increasingly unstable imagination. He was planning our escape with military precision. New identities. Cash withdrawn in small increments so Jaewon's accountants wouldn't notice. A safe house in Busan, then a boat to Japan, then, well, he hadn't quite worked out the then. Details, he assured me. Mere details. Meanwhile, I was drowning in my own deception, trying to figure out how to tell him the truth without triggering whatever psychological break was clearly building behind his eyes. The man who'd once been controlled and professional now oscillated between tender and terrifying, sometimes in the span of a single conversation. I found a doctor, he said one morning, presenting me with a business card. In Busan. She asks no questions, takes only cash. She can monitor the pregnancy, make sure you and the baby are healthy. Daehyun, we need to talk. No. He pressed a finger to my lips, his smile gentle and absolutely unhinged. No more talking. Only planning. Only preparing. I will give you the life you deserve, Amara. Away from him. Away from this world. Just us. Just our family. Our family. 2 words that should have been beautiful but instead sounded like a prison sentence. Jaewon left for Tokyo on Tuesday, oblivious to the revolution brewing in his own home. Before he went, he called me to his office, a blasiancouple affair that overlooked the Han River like a villain's lair in a movie. You did well at the gala, he said, not looking up from his laptop. Several associates commented on your grace. You are proving to be a worthwhile investment. Investment. Not wife. Not partner. Investment. I'm delighted to meet expectations, I replied, my voice dripping with the sarcasm he never seemed to notice. There will be more events. I am expanding operations in Nigeria, as you know. Your presence legitimizes my business interests there. Your father's connections prove useful. My father, who'd sold me like chattel to save his failing company. My father, who called once a month to ask how I was adjusting to my new life, his voice thick with guilt he'd never acknowledge. Happy to help, I said flatly. Jaewon finally looked up, his gaze assessing. You seem different lately. Distracted. Is something wrong? My heart stopped. Did he know? Could he possibly? I'm fine. Just tired. He studied me a moment longer, then returned to his laptop. Your bodyguard has been behaving appropriately? Daehyun? Yes. Why? No reason. He has seemed intense lately. I worry I may have assigned you a guard who takes his duties too seriously. If only he knew. If only he knew how seriously Daehyun took his duties. He's protective. That's his job. Indeed. Jaewon closed his laptop with a soft click. I will be in Tokyo for 2 weeks. Try not to do anything foolish in my absence. The irony nearly made me laugh. Instead, I nodded demurely and left before my face betrayed the catastrophic foolishness I was already neck-deep in. That night, Daehyun came to my room with a duffel bag and purpose in his eyes. Pack light, he instructed. Only essentials. We leave tomorrow night. Tomorrow? Daehyun, that's too soon. It is perfect. Jaewon is gone. His attention is elsewhere. We have a window and we must use it. He crossed to me, hands framing my face with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with the fever in his eyes. I know you are frightened. I know this seems sudden. But I promise, I will keep you safe. Both of you. His hand drifted to my stomach, still flat, still empty, still harboring the lie that was about to destroy everything. I couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't keep perpetuating this fiction, watching him build castles in the air while I knew the foundation was rotten. Daehyun, I need to tell you something. What is it? Are you feeling ill? Is the baby? There is no baby. Silence. The kind of silence that precedes earthquakes. What? His voice had gone very, very quiet. I'm not pregnant. I lied. That night at the gala, I was panicking. You were talking about leaving, and I said it without thinking. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, but there is no baby. He stepped back like I'd slapped him. His face cycled through emotions faster than I could track: confusion, hurt, betrayal, and then something that made my blood run cold: rage. You lied. The word was a whip crack. Yes. I know it was wrong, I know. You let me believe for 3 days, you let me believe we had created something pure, something good, that we were going to be a family. I was trying to find the right time to tell you. The right time. He was shouting now, something he never did. Was it before or after I liquidated my savings? Before or after I arranged for forged passports? Before or after I planned to betray the only man who ever gave me purpose, all for a life that doesn't exist? I'd never seen him like this. Never seen the control completely shatter, the mask obliterated. This was the Special Forces operative, the killer, the man who'd done things that woke him screaming at night. I'm sorry. Sorry. He laughed, the sound jagged and wrong. You manipulated me. Used my feelings, my obsession, yes, let us call it what it is, to keep me chained to you. You are no different than J1. You saw something you wanted and you took it. Consequences be damned. The words hit like bullets. That's not fair. Fair? You want to discuss fair? He advanced on me, and for the first time since I'd met him, I was genuinely afraid. I have destroyed myself for you. I have broken every code I ever lived by. I have betrayed my employer, compromised my integrity, planned to steal his wife, and for what? For a woman who lies as easily as she breathes. I never asked you to become obsessed with me. No. You just enjoyed the benefits of it. My protection, my attention, my devotion. You consumed it all while giving nothing real in return. That's not true. I love you. Do you? He grabbed my arms, not rough, but firm, immovable. Or do you love being loved? Love the way I make you feel seen, wanted, chosen? Because there is a difference, Amara. And I do not think you know which side of that line you stand on. I opened my mouth to argue, but the words died. Because he was right. God help me, he was right. I'd been so intoxicated by his obsession that I'd never stopped to examine my own motives. Did I love him? Or did I just love escaping the cage of my marriage into a different cage, one that felt like freedom because I'd chosen it? I don't know, I whispered. I don't know anymore. He released me, stepping back like I was contaminated. At least you are honest now. What are you going to do? What I should have done months ago. Request a transfer. Leave. Let you and J1 have your comfortable, loveless arrangement. Clearly, you're both well-suited for it. Daehyun, please. Do not. He held up a hand, his voice breaking. Do not make this harder. You have taken enough from me. My honor, my self-respect, my peace. I cannot let you take my sanity too. He left. This time, I knew he meant it. This time, there would be no stolen kisses, no desperate reconciliations. I'd finally pushed him past the point where love looked like devotion and into the territory where it looked like disease. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt hollow. Like I'd excavated all the interesting parts of myself and found nothing but echoes. Daehyun kept his word. The next morning, a new bodyguard appeared, a woman named Hannah, all business and no-nonsense efficiency. She was polite, professional, and completely uninterested in my life, beyond keeping me breathing. Mr. Park has been reassigned, she explained in crisp Korean. I will be handling your security going forward. Where is he? I tried to keep my voice neutral. That is not information I am authorized to share, Mrs. Kim. Of course not. J1's organization ran on compartmentalization and need to know, and I apparently didn't need to know. The days that followed were a special kind of torture. I kept expecting to see Daehyun lurking in doorways, waiting outside my studio, bringing me coffee with a smile that was equal parts professional and proprietary. Instead, there was just Hannah, competent, distant, utterly indifferent to whether I lived or died beyond the paycheck it represented. I tried to return to my old life. Went back to teaching at the art studio in Itaewon. Hannah raised no objections. Reconnected with Chioma and other friends I'd neglected during my months of obsession. Attempted to find some semblance of the woman I'd been before Daehyun's shadow had consumed me. It didn't work. I'd been fundamentally altered, and there was no going back to the unaware version of myself. Worse, I missed him. Missed the cage I'd complained about. Missed the suffocation that had felt like being seen. I was free, and freedom was boring. 3 weeks after Daehyun left, J1 returned from Tokyo with news. I am selling the Seoul penthouse, he announced over dinner, a rare shared meal in our sterile dining room. My operations require me to be based in Tokyo permanently. You will move there with me next month. I set down my fork carefully. Tokyo? Yes. You seem surprised. I've built a life here. My art studio, my students, will be replaced by equivalent opportunities in Tokyo. Amara, you are my wife. Your place is with me. I thought my place was wherever you needed me for photo opportunities and business legitimacy. His eyes narrowed slightly. You have been spending too much time with your Nigerian friends. They are filling your head with Western ideas about independence and self-actualization. It is unbecoming. Unbecoming, I repeated, tasting the word like poison. What an interesting choice of words for a man who married me specifically because my Western education and international connections made me becoming enough for his purposes. Watch your tone. Or what? You'll do what exactly? Divorce me? We both know you need this marriage more than I do. My father's business network, my family's political connections in Lagos. Without me, your West African expansion collapses. Jaehyun stood slowly, and for the first time in our marriage, I saw genuine emotion on his face. Anger. You have forgotten your place. No. I've just stopped pretending I don't know what it is. I'm an asset. A tool. A very expensive, very attractive business card you flash to prove you're not just a thug in a nice suit. He moved around the table with predatory grace. Your new bodyguard tells me you have been difficult lately. Distracted. Emotional. She suggests you may need psychiatric evaluation. She what? I agree. I think the stress of our lifestyle has become too much for you. Perhaps a rest somewhere quiet. I know several excellent facilities that specialize in helping women who struggle with their mental health. The threat was clear: behave or be institutionalized. It was the ultimate flex of power, the final reminder that for all my education and agency, I was still trapped in a world where men like J1 held all the cards. You wouldn't dare, I said, but my voice wavered. Try me. You are my wife, Amara. My responsibility. If I determine you are unwell, I have every right, legal and moral, to ensure you receive treatment. No one would question it. Your own father would probably thank me for taking such good care of his troubled daughter. I wanted to throw my wine in his face. Wanted to scream, to fight, to burn the whole sterile penthouse down around us. Instead, I smiled sweetly and said, Tokyo sounds lovely. When do we leave? He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Better. You are learning. Good. That night, alone in my room, I made a decision. I'd played the victim long enough. Had oscillated between cages long enough: Jae-won's gilded prison, Daehyun's obsessive protection, society's expectations, my own cowardice. If I was going to burn, I might as well light the match myself. Finding Daehyun wasn't hard. For all of Jae-won's security protocols, I was still the boss's wife. I had access to personnel files, operational reports, the entire infrastructure of his criminal empire if I knew where to look. And I'd been paying attention. Daehyun had been reassigned to security detail for one of Jae-won's shipping warehouses in Incheon. A demotion, clearly. Punishment for some perceived failure, though Jae-won didn't know the half of what Daehyun had actually failed at. I told Hannah I was visiting an art gallery in Incheon. They had an exhibition on contemporary African artists that actually existed, so the lie had teeth. She drove me there, waited outside while I browsed, and never questioned when I slipped out the back entrance and caught a cab to the industrial district where Jae-won's warehouses hulked like sleeping monsters. Finding the right warehouse was easy. Finding Daehyun was easier. He was outside, smoking, a habit I didn't know he had, and looking like he'd aged 5 years in 3 weeks. Amara. He dropped the cigarette, crushing it under his heel. You should not be here. Probably not. But I'm here anyway. If Jae-won finds out. He won't. Hannah thinks I'm at a gallery. We have maybe an hour before she gets suspicious. He laughed bitterly. An hour? How generous. What do you want? To apologize. To explain. I don't know. To see you. You have seen me. Now leave before we both suffer for it. Jae-won is moving me to Tokyo. Something flickered in his eyes. When? Next month. Permanently. I see. Then this is goodbye. It doesn't have to be. Amara. I know I lied. I know I manipulated you. I know I'm toxic and selfish and everything you said I was. But you were right about something else too. I don't know if I love you or if I love being loved. And I think the only way I'll ever know is if we actually try this. Really try. Not as an affair, not as an escape from my marriage, but as what? 2 broken people playing house while your husband's assassins hunt us down. Maybe. Or maybe as 2 people who see each other clearly, scars and all, and choose each other anyway. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them, I saw the man I'd fallen for, the one who'd whispered devotion and threats in equal measure, who'd loved me and possessed me and maybe never known the difference. I cannot protect you if we run, he said quietly. I cannot give you the life you deserve. All I can offer is myself, and myself is not enough. Let me decide what's enough. You have terrible judgment. You married a gangster, fell for his bodyguard, and now you are proposing we flee the country with no plan and no future. Your decision-making is spectacularly bad. And yours is better? You fell in love with your employer's wife. Glass houses, Daehyun. He laughed, a real laugh this time, and God, I'd missed that sound. Fair point. We stood in the weak afternoon sunlight, two people who'd ruined each other staring at the wreckage we'd made, trying to decide if it was worth salvaging. I have a plan, I said finally. Not a great one. Maybe not even a good one. But a plan. I am listening. Jaewon needs me for his West African operations. But he needs willing cooperation, not a sullen prisoner. If I threaten to sabotage his business deals, to publicly divorce him and expose his operations to my father's political connections, he'll have to negotiate. He will kill you first. No. He'll kill you to punish me, then force me back in line. Unless you're already gone. Unless we stage it so you quit, disappear, and I stay and make Jaewon's life hell until he agrees to let me go. Daehyun's eyes narrowed. You want to fight him from the inside. I want to reclaim my power. On my terms. Not as your obsession, not as his possession, but as myself. And then, when I'm free, if you still want me, we can choose each other. Really choose. Without lies, without manipulation. Just choice. That could take months. Years. I know. And I am supposed to just wait? Trust that you will not change your mind, fall for someone else, decide I am not worth the effort. Yes. That is insane. Probably. But it's the only sane option we have left. He considered this, his face cycling through a dozen emotions. Finally, he reached out and touched my face, gentle, reverent, heartbreaking. You make me want to believe in impossible things, he whispered in Korean. That is either your greatest gift or your greatest curse. Both. Definitely both. He kissed me then, soft and desperate and goodbye and hello all at once. 1 year, he said when we broke apart. I will give you 1 year to free yourself. And if you do, if you actually manage to escape Jaewon without getting killed, I will be waiting. But Amara, if you do not, if you fail or change your mind, I will disappear. Completely. Forever. I cannot live in this limbo, loving you and losing you over and over. 1 year, I agreed. I can do that. I couldn't, of course. I had no idea how I was going to outmaneuver a man who'd built an empire on being smarter and more ruthless than everyone else. But I'd said it anyway, made the promise anyway, because sometimes courage is just stupidity that works out. Or doesn't. We'd see. Chapter 4, The Long Game. Becoming the perfect wife was easy. I'd had practice. What was harder was becoming the perfect angry wife, the one who complied with Jaewon's demands while making him understand that compliance came at a cost, that every order followed was a favor owed, that his nice, tidy, transactional marriage had become a negotiation. It started small. In Tokyo, I threw myself into Jaewon's business with an enthusiasm that bordered on aggressive. Attended every meeting, charmed every client, leveraged my father's connections so effectively that Jaewon's West African expansion accelerated by 6 months. But I also started asking questions. About the business. About the books. About the various misunderstandings with rival families and the surprisingly high death rate among his associates. Why the sudden interest? Jaewon asked one evening, watching me review shipping manifests with a frown. I'm your wife. Your partner. Shouldn't I understand the family business? Partner is a strong word. Is it? You've built your entire African strategy on my family's legitimacy. I'd say that makes me a partner. Unless you'd prefer I withdraw that support. His eyes went cold. Careful, Amara. I'm always careful. That's why I'm noticing some interesting patterns in these shipment records. For instance, did you know that 3 of your legitimate shipping containers have gone missing in Lagos over the past 2 months? Or that your associate, Mr. Chin, has been routing payments through accounts that don't appear in your official ledgers. The silence that followed was arctic. How did you access those records? His voice was dangerously quiet. I asked. Nicely. People tend to give me things when I smile. I looked up from the manifests, meeting his gaze steadily. You wanted a wife who could navigate high society and legitimize your business. Well, here I am. Navigating. Legitimizing. Did you think I'd do it without actually understanding what I was legitimizing? You are playing a dangerous game. No. I'm playing your game. And I'm rather good at it, aren't I? For the first time in our marriage, I saw something like respect flicker across Jaewon's face. He poured himself scotch, then poured one for me, an unprecedented gesture. You remind me of my mother, he said, which sounded like an insult, but carried the weight of reverence. She understood power, respected it, wielded it when necessary. I'll take that as a compliment. You should. She was the most dangerous woman I ever knew. He studied me over his glass. What do you want, Amara? Respect. Agency. A role in this marriage beyond decorative asset. And if I give you these things, then you gain an actual partner. Someone who can manage your African operations without supervision. Who can identify threats before they become problems. Who can turn your criminal empire into something that looks legitimate enough to withstand scrutiny. In exchange for? Freedom. Not to leave, I understand our arrangement is mutually beneficial. But freedom to make decisions, to pursue my own interests, to be treated like a human being rather than a possession. Jaewon set down his glass with a decisive click. Done. With conditions. Which are: you do nothing to endanger my operations. You maintain absolute discretion. And if you ever betray me, his smile was winter itself. Well, let us not discuss that possibility. We shook hands like business partners concluding a deal. Which, I suppose, we were. Over the next 6 months, I became indispensable. Jaewon gave me an office, a staff, actual responsibilities beyond smiling for cameras. I learned the business from the ground up, the legitimate shipping operations, the less legitimate smuggling routes, the complex web of bribes and favors and threats that kept the empire functioning. I also learned its weaknesses. Every organization has them: the overlooked accountant who resents being undervalued, the lieutenant passed over for promotion, the rival family waiting for an opening. I cataloged them all, building a mental map of leverage points and pressure points and the exact fault lines where Jaewon's empire could fracture if someone applied force in the right direction. I wasn't planning to destroy him. Not exactly. But I needed insurance. Needed to ensure that when I finally asked for my freedom, he'd understand the cost of refusing. Meanwhile, I heard nothing from Daehyun. He'd vanished completely, no messages, no sightings, no proof he was even still alive beyond my stubborn belief that I'd feel it if he were dead. Our year deadline ticked closer with each passing day, and I vacillated between determination and despair. What if I succeeded in freeing myself only to discover he'd moved on? Or what if I failed and spent the rest of my life wondering what could have been? The breakthrough came in month 8, courtesy of the last person I expected, my father. He called on a Tuesday, his voice heavy with news. Amara, I need to speak with you. In person. It's urgent. What's wrong? Not over the phone. Can you come to Lagos? I could, as it turned out. Jaewon needed someone to oversee a new shipping partnership, and I'd proven myself capable enough that he trusted me to handle it. I flew to Lagos with Hannah in tow, expecting some family drama or business complication. Instead, my father looked like he'd aged a decade since I'd last seen him. I made a mistake, he said without preamble. Selling you to Kim Jae-won. I told myself it was for the family, for the business. But I sold my daughter to save my pride, and I cannot live with it anymore. I stared at him, unable to process what I was hearing. Papa, I have been making inquiries. Quiet ones. About divorce laws, about contract termination, about what it would take to extract you from this arrangement. He pulled out a folder, hands shaking. I have also been investigating Jaewon. His operations, his vulnerabilities. If you want out, I can help. It will not be easy, and it will cost us everything, perhaps. But I owe you that choice. The folder contained a year's worth of investigation, paper trails, witness statements, documentation of criminal activities that could send Jaewon to prison for life if presented to the right authorities. It was comprehensive. Damning. Exactly the leverage I needed. Why no? I asked quietly. Because I saw you at Christmas. Saw how hollow you had become. You smiled, you laughed, you played the role perfectly, and that is when I knew I had destroyed you. The daughter I raised would never have been so perfectly, obediently miserable. I should have been angry. Should have thrown his guilt back in his face, made him suffer for the choice he'd made. Instead, I hugged him, this flawed, desperate man who'd sold me, and then spent a year trying to buy me back. Thank you, I whispered. So you will divorce him? I will free myself. On my terms. But yes. I returned to Tokyo with a plan and a deadline. 3 months until Daehyun's 1-year limit expired. 3 months to execute the most dangerous play of my life. I started by consolidating power. Jaewon had given me authority over the African operations. I used it to build loyalty among his people, to position myself as an asset too valuable to threaten. Then I started subtly redirecting resources, nothing obvious, just small adjustments that would become crucial leverage later. Finally, I scheduled a meeting. Just me and Jaewon in his office, with the weight of everything I'd learned hanging between us. I want a divorce, I said without preamble. He didn't even look up from his laptop. No, I'm not asking. I'm informing you of my decision. Now he looked up. You seem to have forgotten how this arrangement works. Not at all. You married me for my family's connections and social legitimacy. I have provided both. Our contract has been fulfilled. Our contract is a marriage. It ends when I say it ends. I placed the folder on his desk. This is documentation of 17 separate criminal enterprises, 8 contract killings, and a trafficking operation that spans 3 continents, all tied directly to you. If this information reaches the appropriate authorities, you would destroy your own father's business. My operations in Africa are entirely dependent on his infrastructure. Expose me, and you expose him. I'm aware. He's also aware. This is his work, actually. Seems he's developed a conscience. Jaewon opened the folder, scanning the contents with increasing displeasure. If you release this, I will kill you both. No, you won't. Because I've arranged for copies to be automatically released to law enforcement in 6 countries if anything happens to me or my father. Dead woman switch, as they say. Very dramatic, but effective. You have been planning this for months. 8, to be precise. I'm a very patient woman when properly motivated. He leaned back in his chair, reassessing me with something that might have been admiration if it weren't so calculating. What do you want? Clean divorce. No contest, no drama. I walk away with my personal assets and a guarantee of safety for myself and my family. You continue your operations without interference from me. We both move on with our lives. And if I refuse? Then I burn it all down. Your empire, my father's business, everything. We all lose. But at least I'll be free. The standoff lasted an eternity. Then Jaewon smiled, a real smile, sharp and dangerous and almost approving. You have become quite ruthless, Amara. I am impressed. I had a good teacher. 2 questions. First, there is a man, yes? This is about a man. My silence was answer enough. I thought so. Your new bodyguard reported that you were different after Daehyun left. Angrier. More focused. The signs were obvious once I knew to look. He steepled his fingers. Second question, was it worth it? All this plotting, all this risk, all this mutually assured destruction for what? For love. I thought about Daehyun's hands on my face. His whispered Korean endearments. The way he looked at me like I was salvation and damnation in one beautiful package. The cage I'd hated and craved in equal measure. I don't know yet, I admitted. But I'm going to find out. Jaewon laughed, genuine, unguarded laughter. You know what? I respect that. Fine. We will divorce. Cleanly, quietly. But Amara, his expression hardened. If your lover is who I think he is, be careful. Daehyun is not a man who loves halfway. He will either save you or destroy you. There is no middle ground. I know. Good. Then at least you walk into this disaster with your eyes open. The divorce took 2 months to finalize. Jaewon kept his word, no contest, no drama, just signatures and legal proceedings that dissolved our marriage as efficiently as it had been created. My father's business survived intact. I survived intact. Free. I was actually impossibly free. Chapter 5. The Reckoning. Finding Daehyun the second time was harder. He disappeared thoroughly, leaving no trail, no forwarding address, no breadcrumbs for me to follow. For a week, I panicked, convinced he'd given up on me, moved on, decided I wasn't worth the wait. Then I remembered, he was Special Forces. If he didn't want to be found, he wouldn't be. Unless I knew where to look. The apartment in Busan was a shot in the dark. He'd mentioned it once, months ago, during our planning phase, a safe house he'd maintained, a bolt hole in case everything went wrong. The address was burned in my memory, insurance against abandonment. It was a nothing place in a nothing neighborhood, the kind of building that existed solely to be overlooked. I climbed 3 flights of stairs, Hannah trailing behind me. Even divorced, I'd kept the bodyguard, some habits die hard, and knocked on door 3B. Nothing. I knocked again. Daehyun? It's me. The door opened so fast I nearly fell forward. And there he was, thinner than I remembered, harder somehow, like he'd spent the year stripping himself down to essentials. But alive. God alive. Amara. My name was a question, a prayer, a disbelief all rolled into one syllable. Can I come in? He stepped aside wordlessly. The apartment was Spartan, single room, basic furniture, nothing personal except a photograph on the table. Me. Smiling. From before everything got complicated. You kept my picture, I said stupidly. It was all I had. We stood in awkward silence, 2 people who'd been intimate in every way that mattered suddenly strangers again. I'm divorced, I said finally. As of 3 days ago, I'm legally free. No more J1, no more obligation, no more. He kissed me. Desperate and fierce and tasting like a year of longing distilled into one moment. I kissed back just as desperately, fingers tangling in his hair, trying to prove through touch that this was real, I was real, we were finally, impossibly real. How? He gasped when we broke apart. How did you escape him? Blackmail. Leverage. My father's guilt and good record-keeping. It's a long story. I have time. So I told him. Everything. The 8 months of consolidation, the investigation, the standoff in J1's office, the clean divorce that should have been impossible but somehow wasn't. He listened without interrupting, his expression cycling through pride and horror, and something that looked suspiciously like awe. You did it, he said when I finished. You actually did it. I had motivation. Me, you, and myself. But mostly you. He pulled me close, forehead resting against mine in that gesture I'd missed so achingly. I did not think you would come. I told myself you would choose safety over uncertainty, comfort over chaos. That I was a fool for waiting. You were. I am. We both are. I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. But here we are anyway. So now what? Now. Daehyun's smile was crooked, uncertain. Now we figure out if we can actually love each other when there is no cage, no forbidden attraction, no danger to make it feel urgent. Now we discover if what we have is real or if it was only beautiful because it was broken. That's terrifying. Yes. Also necessary. What if we fail? Then we fail. But at least we will have tried on our own terms. No J1, no obligations, no lies. Just us, making mistakes and choices in equal measure. I kissed him again, softer this time, tasting possibility instead of desperation. I can work with that. We didn't get our happy ending that day. Or the next day. Or even the next month. Turned out, building a relationship on mutual obsession and power dynamics doesn't exactly translate well to healthy partnership. We fought God, how we fought. About his overprotectiveness, still present, still suffocating. About my tendency to manipulate rather than communicate. About the fact that we'd built our entire connection on dysfunction and were now trying to retrofit it into something sustainable. There were days I thought about leaving. Days he probably thought about letting me. Days we both wondered if we'd destroyed ourselves chasing something that only existed in the fevered dream of our affair. But there were also good days. Days where we laughed like normal people. Where he taught me to cook Korean food without burning down the kitchen. where I dragged him to art galleries and he pretended to understand my terrible abstract sculptures, where we slowly, painfully learned to be people together instead of obsessions. 6 months after my divorce, Dae-hyun got a job offer, legitimate security work for a tech company, boring and safe, and everything his old life wasn't. He took it. I started applying to art programs in Busan, building a life that was mine instead of borrowed from someone else's cage. We moved in together. Fought about it. Fought about furniture placement, and whose turn it was to do dishes, and whether his obsessive checking of locks was security conscious or neurotic. It was both. 1 year after my divorce, he asked me to marry him. I said no. No? He looked genuinely shocked. I've done the marriage thing. It didn't work out well for me. This would be different. Would it? Or would we just be trading one kind of cage for another? Dae-hyun, I love you. God knows I love you. But I don't need a ring to prove it. I need space. To breathe. To be. To know that we're together because we choose to be every single day, not because of vows or contracts or legal obligation. He considered this, then slowly nodded. You are right. Marriage is not about love. It is about obligation. And we have had enough obligation for several lifetimes. Exactly. So what do we do instead? This. Whatever this is. We keep showing up, keep choosing each other, keep fighting and failing and trying again. No guarantees, no safety net. Just us. That is terrifying. I know. But at least it's ours. Epilogue. 3 years later. We're at a gallery opening in Seoul, my gallery opening, my first solo exhibition as a Korean-based artist. The sculptures are all about cages and birds and the complicated space between captivity and protection. Critics are calling them haunting and psychologically complex. I'm calling them therapeutic and cashing the checks. Dae-hyun stands at my side, hand resting lightly at my back. Not possessive anymore, just present. He's learned to give me space. I've learned to let him close. We're both still learning, still failing sometimes, still choosing each other anyway. Jae-won sent a congratulatory note, along with an absurdly expensive flower arrangement. No hard feelings, apparently. Or at least no feelings worth acting on. I heard through the grapevine he remarried, a Japanese woman from a powerful family, someone more suited to his world than I ever was. I'm genuinely happy for him, in the way you can be happy for someone whose life you escaped. My father is here too, awkward and proud, trying to make small talk with art collectors while obviously out of his depth. We've rebuilt our relationship slowly, carefully. He'll never fully forgive himself for selling me. I'll never fully forget it. But we're trying, which is more than I expected. Are you happy? Dae-hyun asks quietly, in Korean, the language we speak to each other now more often than English. I look around, at my art, at my life, at the future I built from the ashes of terrible choices. I think so. Are you? I am obsessed with you, he says, because honesty is something we practice now. Still. Always. But I am learning to let that obsession be love instead of possession. So yes. In my own deeply problematic way, I am happy. Good. Because you're stuck with me. Promise? No promises. Just choices. And I choose you today. Ask me again tomorrow. He laughs, the sound warm and real, and kisses my temple. I will. Every day. Until you finally get tired of me. Might be a while. I am counting on it. We're not a fairy tale. We're not even a romance novel, really more like a cautionary tale about toxic attachment patterns and the long, difficult road to actual intimacy. But we're ours. And after everything, the cages, the obsession, the mutual destruction and rebuilding, that's enough. For now. For today. Maybe for tomorrow. And in the end, isn't that all any of us really have? The end. Author's note. This story explores toxic relationship dynamics, obsessive love, and the complicated journey from possession to partnership. If you found yourself relating a little too much to the unhealthy parts, maybe talk to someone. Seriously. Therapy is cheaper than divorcing a Korean mafia boss.